Hello everybody, this is Monty with Flowers by the Bunch. Today we are going to work on a bridal bouquet, and I am going to show you how I like to put those together. We are going to start out with a grid or a armature. It is floral design grid or wire. It's chicken wire basically, and we ordered it from a company called LO Supply. They're out of Miami, and we have just started using them, and they're wonderful. They have all sorts of great supplies, but this is just a square of the design mesh. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to make a grid, and honestly I don't need anywhere close to this much, so I'm going to use my snips and I'm going to cut it in half because there is no need in wasting. So I'm just using my snips and I'm cutting it in half. Now I find if you do not want to order a large roll of this mesh from the wholesaler, they do have smaller rolls, but you can also use regular chicken wire and it's going to work exactly the same. So I'm going to roll that wire and I'm going to start to bend it in, and I am going to make kind of a little pillow shaped grid. So just bend it all in. Now I will say the difference in using this wire versus chicken wire, it's not quite as rigid as regular chicken wire is, so it doesn't bite quite as bad. You have to kind of be careful with chicken wire because it will bite, it'll cut you. So all I did was just kind of rolled it in and just made like a little ball. Okay, next what I'm going to do is take some white hydrangeas. Now these are just standard white hydrangeas. I am going to pull the foliage off, and I am just going to kind of fluff those up just like that. And I'm going to take my grid and kind of tuck it in the very center of those two white hydrangeas. Okay, so I took 3 white hydrangeas and I put my little grid in the center. My hydrangeas are really just covering up those mechanics. So I have made my little armature using our floral grid, which is kind of like chicken wire. Next what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some white hydrangeas. I would like to cover this armature. So I'm going to hold the little grid in my hand, and I'm going to kind of come around it with some white hydrangeas and just kind of nestle it between those white hydrangeas. Now you can see it there kind of in the center, but it's hard to see the grid underneath. And the reason I'm using those hydrangeas is strictly for that, is to give us a little bit of camouflage, and it just makes our arrangement fuller and prettier. So next what I'm going to do is I am going to start by adding some flowers, other white flowers to our arrangement. So we've got some beautiful white stock here, and I'm going to take the stock and kind of strip off some of the leaves, and I am just going to nestle that stock right down into that little armature. So I just slid it right down into that grid, take my second stem, strip off that foliage, and slide it right down into that armature. Now what this armature does is it kind of holds these flowers apart. Often when we use a hydrangea as our grid, everything gets really kind of compact. If you don't have a hydrangea or the wire grid, everything gets really kind of stuck together, and I don't love that. I don't love that it's all real stuck. So I'm just taking those pieces of stock, stripping that foliage down, and just working those right down into that armature. Okay, so there's our stock. And of course you can still see my grid, and that's completely okay. We're going to put other flowers that help us cover it. Next we have some pretty white roses. So these are Playa Blanca roses. That's the variety. I'm pulling off that foliage, and I am going to take and nestle that rose right down into my hand, into that grid. Now I don't want this too fixed of a bouquet. And if you see any rose petals that don't look pretty, just go ahead and peel those off. I'm removing most of the foliage. I have found over the years that armatures make designing a bouquet so much easier. They've not always been an easy thing to design, but since I started using an armature, I have found it's so much easier to arrange them. And your stems don't have to really go down into that grid. You can actually just kind of lay it up against the back side if you want to. It's not something that you have to stick all your blooms in. Next we're going to come in with this kind of terracotta orange colored rose. I am not exactly sure of the variety, but it's really a soft orangey color, real pretty. I'm going to take that. I blew it open just a little bit so the bloom would be a little more open. I am going to take that stem, and I'm not actually hitting the wire armature. I'm really just working it right down into the hydrangea. Okay, next we're going to come in with a barista rose. So a barista, let's see, this is a barista. It kind of has that pink tip. It's almost, I would almost say it's a mauve color. It's just a beautiful rose. Now it's funny, we received the barista roses, and we actually got from two different farms. We got the same variety, but they were roses from two different farms. And it's interesting at how different the two farms, the roses looked, being the same variety. It was kind of interesting. But these kind of come off a little pink, where this comes off kind of that peachy orangey color. I am trying to leave as much of the foliage, sorry, I got a little tickle in my throat, the foliage on the stem as I possibly can. It just makes it's just pretty. So that's why I'm leaving some of that foliage on. And I am taking my snips and removing any of those thorns, because we sure don't want them to bite our bride. And sometimes it takes a little bit of work to work that rose down into all those stems that you're holding in your hand. Okay, so just a really pretty compact little arrangement. Okay, next we're going to come in with lisianthus. And lisianthus is truly one of my favorite flowers. And I'm actually going to go and grab a couple more stems. But I am just taking my lizzie, and I'm going to remove some of that foliage. And again, we're just going to nestle that right down into that bouquet, just like we did all the other flowers. But I want to leave them the stems a little longer, because I love the movement of the lisianthus. So you just work that stem right down in there. And if you cut your stems a little short, you can use this in a different arrangement. So don't feel like you're messing up if you cut your stems a little short, because you can absolutely use that in another arrangement in the wedding. We actually have several different styles of arrangements, so it's completely okay. And I actually broke that one, so I'm going to pull that one out because it's got to have water. So I'm going to pull it out. We'll use that in another arrangement. So give me just a second. Let me go grab some more lisianthus. All right, these are just some of the buds from the lizzie, and I'm just going to take them and kind of work them through. I just love the fact that it gives us a lot of movement and a lot of texture. And so that's why I love to work with the buds of lizzie. All right, and to finish this bouquet, we are going to add some beautiful foliage and a touch of baby's breath. The bridesmaids, their bouquets are baby's breath, so we're going to use just a touch of baby's breath to finish it off we just kind of want it to kind of go all the way through. We want to blend. And so I thought we would add, I can get that one little stem to go in without breaking him. All right, I'm going to trim up these stems just strictly because they're my way. So I'm going to take my snip and I'm just going to trim up the stems. Okay, so I just trimmed them up a little because it's a little hard to hold everything. Next, we're going to come in with some eucalyptus. So this is called Parvifolia eucalyptus, one of my favorite varieties. I just love that it's kind of airy and drippy, and I like that in a bridal bouquet. And so I'm just going to take it and cut it into smaller pieces, strip the bottom leaves off, and lay that right in my hand just to kind of give us some movement. I say that a lot, but I like the movement. And so I'm kind of taking that eucalyptus and kind of going all the way around. And I'm going to trim up this hydrangea just a little bit. It's a little too much. I'm going to take it and just trim it up just a little. Sometimes things need a little haircut, and that's completely okay. Just trim it up as you need to. All right, so there is our Parvifolia eucalyptus. Next, we're going to come in with a little bit of Italian ruscus. So Italian ruscus is going to give us kind of that viney effect, and it makes it a little bit larger and showier. A little dramatic is what I like to say. So I'm going to take my snips and trim up my foliage and just take that one piece, and it's going to give us a little bit of movement. You can see how it gives us a little length. Take the piece I cut off, tuck that in towards the back here. And I like to save all these little pieces. You might be able to use them in corsages and boutonnieres. So if you have small work, always try to save some of those shoots that you cut off, and that way you can use them. I'm going to nestle it kind of down into that armature there and catch it, kind of fill in some of those spaces. I like to have a little bit of greenery kind of throughout. And I don't know about you, but my hand begins to ache about this time. Victoria's going, yes it does. Your hand gets tired. And so if your hand is tired, it's completely okay for you to go ahead and tape. You can absolutely tape it now if you want to. You can tape it anytime. I just find it's easier to tuck that foliage and those flowers into an open grid to kind of, it's just a little easier. Next, I'm going to come in with just a hint of some baby's breath. So this is Excellence Baby's Breath. It's a larger variety. I'm going to trim it up just a little bit. Again, I'm going to save the tiny pieces and use for flowers to wear. And I'm going to take my little piece and I'm just going to nestle it just the same as I did any of the other flowers. Go right there through that armature. Catch that stem out the other side and see it how it's just kind of nestled deep down in. You don't want to get too carried away with baby's breath. I think baby's breath is beautiful when it's used sparingly, but baby's breath isn't always easy to use. I don't know about you, but I have found it's a harder filler flower to use, just strictly because I'm going to catch that stem right here, pull that down, just strictly because it breaks really easily. And so I don't know, it's not always an easy flower or filler flower to use. Okay, so now is when I like to go and stand in front of a mirror and kind of look at my arrangement and make sure it kind of looks like I want it to. And at this point, before you tape it, you can always rearrange any of your flowers and make sure they're in the spot that you want them in. So give me a moment. Let me go look at this really quickly before I show you how we are going to tape it. So give me just a second. All right. So the last thing we're going to add is a little bit of Tweedia. So Tweedia, I have never worked with it before. It came in a pretty mixed box. And it's really fun. It's got very soft leaves. It almost reminds you, they're soft like, a lot like lamb's ear. Just a really soft foliage. So I'm just going to nestle some of that right down in. That's for tomorrow's rehearsal dinner. Yep. We got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank y'all so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. All right. And there is our finished bridal bouquet. So what I'm going to do, let me show you how I like to tie it off. I'm just going to clean off my space real quick. Next, what I'm going to do is take a little bit of tape. This is just a waterproof tape. Now, years ago when I would tie off bouquets, we would use a wax. It would be a waxed string. And so now I have found, I couldn't find the wax string. When I opened my own flower shop, I could not get my hands on the wax string that we always used. And I wondered why we didn't just use tape. So that's what I use. I find tape is not going to cut into the stems like wire is. So if you use a wire, you're going to want to use a covered wire. So I'm going to lay my bouquet down. And I'm taking my tape and I'm kind of coming, I'm trying so you can see it. I'm taking that tape and I'm going to come all the way around those stems. And you're just going to go around and around as tightly as you can with that tape. And if you want to tape it off slowly but surely as you go, you absolutely can. I will tell you that the reason I like to try to hold them all in my hand is because it makes the grid a little easier to get my flowers in. But it's really completely up to you as to how you'd like to do that. Okay, take your snips and cut your tape. I'm going to trim those stems. And there is our hand-tied bouquet. Now, how I like to cover this tape is I like to just take a little bit of pretty ribbon, which is this white ribbon. I think Kelly's here by herself. So I'm going to take this white ribbon and I'm going to cut a strip. And I like to just lay it right over that tape where I taped my stems. So I'm going to come around as tightly as I can with that ribbon. And this is just regular floral satin ribbon. So I'm just taking it and going as tightly around as I can. So I just folded that ribbon over, and I am going to take a florist pin, which is just a little corsage pin, that ribbon right into place. And there is our pretty bridal bouquet. And again, we used an armature and we nestled it between all those hydrangeas, but the hydrangeas completely covered that armature. Now that is very important. You always want to make sure that your mechanics are covered, but it really turned out a beautiful bouquet. Guys, thank you for being here. If you have any questions about how we do things here at Flowers by the Bunch, you can always ask. We are so happy to answer your questions. If you have not already subscribed to our channel, be sure to hit that little subscribe button right down below. And if you'll hit the little bell, it'll give you notifications for when we have a brand new video. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.